everybody, welcome to Country Girl with Kathy Jarvis. And today we're going to look at the Shelter Logic greenhouse in a box. And I got this greenhouse back in 2015. And it's been a fairly good greenhouse. The only problem I've had with it has been the covers. Now, it was easy to put up. The covers were easy to put on, but they didn't last very long. They only last about 2, maybe 3 years at the top. And they cost about, almost $200 to replace. So that is an expense that you have to kind of know that you're going to have to do. And another thing is that they don't do well in wind. Now, what I had before, it was a little bit sheltered more from the wind than what it is now. And we haven't had a big windstorm like we had this past weekend. We had a really, really good windstorm. In fact, it took our antenna, our TV antenna. We're going to have to replace it because that's how bad the wind was. But we anchored the greenhouse down the way they said. And it did. The frame did stay. It warped, not warped, but it catty-cornered a little, so we had to straighten it up afterwards. But the cover almost came off. So we had to ratchet down the cover more. So if you buy one of these, know that you're going to have to do a little bit more anchoring than what it actually says in the directions. The greenhouse has done well as far as the plants growing inside of it. I've been able to grow tomatoes, cucumbers, hot peppers, regular peppers. They've all done great inside there, and my herbs have done good inside there. So it's a good little greenhouse and it's unheated, and I use solar lights, and I do use propane heater if we're gonna have an ice storm or something, but I don't heat it on a regular basis. So the frame is fairly sturdy. It's just got a couple of design flaws. It would have been better if the posts had been sunk into the ground instead of just anchored with little long anchors, because those wires do rust. We had to replace we replaced all of them, but 2 of them are actually broken. So we had to replace those. So there is some maintenance on these that you don't find on your huge greenhouses that you pay more money for. I mean, I only paid like maybe $300 for the whole thing. $300 to $400 for the whole thing. So it wasn't bad as a first investment for my first greenhouse. And it was gave me a chance to see if I really liked greenhouses. And as you can tell, I love greenhouses. We're putting up the 3rd one now. So it was a good little way to get my feet into the door to find out if I liked it or not. And like I said, I'm still keeping it. I got the new cover, and it did not do well in the storm. First cover lasted about 3 years. Second cover, it had tear in it almost immediately the first day. And this one's lasted about a week, and probably would last longer if the storm hadn't come and if we'd anchored it down better, but we didn't. We just followed the directions. So that is another cat. So that's what I think of it. We did manage to get back up after the storm. It's back normal. Plus, we decided to add some more anchors on the side. We're anchoring the zipper down so that when the wind comes, that was one of the problems. The zipper just unzipped and the wind just went in and had nowhere to go because it couldn't get out the backside because that zipper was closed and stayed closed. So we anchored it down more. We put drainage around it, and it's got row up sides, but they only row up to about a foot, and I never hardly ever used them. So we are actually going to anchor those into the gravel, and that way they won't be able to be raised up, but they also will not allow the wind to get in. We had a windstorm last night, and this is what it did to the poor little greenhouse. Now this was put together and anchored just with the way the kit said it should be anchored. And this is what the damage was. Okay, this is how it was anchored down. You just basically put the anchors into the ground, and then you put the ratchets, and that's what holds the covering on. And you do that to all four corners. And you ratchet the back wall and the front wall and then the side wall, and that's supposed to hold it. It did not hold it through the storm. And you can see some of the damage that happened. The hems come apart on there. The hems come apart there. We had these rods came apart. That's what happened. Now this isn't a young greenhouse. I've had it since 2015. And this is the third cover for it. So like I said, I got this greenhouse in 2015, and we've gone through 3 covers. And each cover, the first cover lasts about 3 years. The second cover, the screen had a hole in it the first day. And this one has lasted a week before the damage started. But for a new cover that you pay almost $200 for, you expect it to last a little bit longer than just a week. So we're going to add more reinforcements. Do you see I put these in during this to try to help keep it from flying away, and they helped. At least the frame stayed where it was supposed to at. But like I said, these rods right here, they have a joint in the center here, and those all came apart, and that caused the greenhouse to really become unstable. Another little add-on that we did to this was all of our other covers seemed to tear at these points where the bend in the rod, so we put insulation over that to kind of help protect the plastic. We did that on each of the bends and at the top at the bends to help protect the upper part of the plastic from rubbing against those curves. So like I said, this wasn't a real expensive greenhouse. It was just one of those greenhouse in a box. And it was just one of those greenhouses in a box, a 10 by 10 by 8 Shelter Logic. It didn't cost that much. It was my very first greenhouse, and it's done really well in the past. As far as the greenhouse part, I've been able to grow year-round in them. And the other location we had, I don't know if it didn't get as much wind, because we didn't have the problem. We did have a fairly high gust of winds, more than usual. So maybe that was it. But we are going to add more anchors to it, and we're going to tighten up all the screws on it, and hopefully it will last. So in conclusion, would I recommend the Shelter Logic greenhouse in a box 10 by 10 by 8 as a first greenhouse? Actually, yes. If it was in a sheltered spot, if you anchored it down well, you see how we've buried this into the gravel. And we've got anchors in the front, anchors at the door, anchors inside on this center post here. It's anchored down, and the covering is ratcheted down. The only thing I will say is make sure you check the ratchets about once a week, especially before a storm or after a storm, to make sure they're still tight. But overall, if you don't mind replacing the cover every 3 years, or at least, or have it in a sheltered area where it's not going to get beat up by wind, yes, I would recommend it. And it's the first little greenhouse. It was fine. I prefer my bigger ones, But it's been a good greenhouse. And I mean, I kept it. I could have gotten rid of it when I got the 2 new ones, but I'm keeping it, and I'm going to use it for herbs and for starting seeds. So, hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something. Remember, give it a thumbs up if you liked it. Share it with your friends. And subscribe to the channel if you would. Remember, dream big, follow that dream. I'll see you in the next video. Bye, everybody.